realities. I am sitting here with a very close friend of mine, and we're going to be doing something a little bit different today. So we are definitely going to get into some relationships. You're going to get a little funny, a little crazy, and a whole lot of reality. So I am sitting here, like I said, with my good friend, and I'm going to give her a second to introduce herself.
Hey everyone, my name is Jessica, and I've known Reyna now for quite a few years. We met through dance,
Yes.
the dance community, which we love.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in my early 40s, and
She doesn't look a day over 20, everybody. Not a day over 20.
you're so sweet. And I'm originally from San Diego. I was born and raised and grew up here, even graduated from college here. And then after that, I wanted to try something different, and I moved to New York City, the big city, and I lived there for several years, which was an amazing experience.
Mm-hmm.
And then life just sort of happened, and I ended up coming back to San Diego, and I've been back here for quite a while now. I work as a background investigator for the federal government, so I do background investigations for people who need security clearances.
That's awesome. It sounds like you've definitely had quite a few special adventures or fun adventures. Like, tell me about New York. What was your favorite part about living in New York?
Oh, man. That's a long list. I feel like even though I was born on the West Coast, I definitely feel, surprisingly enough, I feel more home on the East Coast.
Oh, trust me. I can absolutely understand. I am not about the San Diego life as much as I used to be.
Yeah, I mean, New York, well, first of all, I was in my early 20s.
Mm-hmm.
So I was definitely in a different phase of
Right.
life than I am now.
Mm-hmm.
But I loved the energy,
Mm-hmm.
the diversity. I mean, San Diego's a diverse place, but not compared to New York City.
Right.
You know?
And the energy, like you
Yeah.
said, like the energy in New York, like the city just feels alive, like all the time. There's something all the time.
And there's always something to do.
Right.
So it's like no matter whatever your cup of tea is,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's hip hop, the Latin scene, gay, straight,
Mm-hmm.
poetry readings, arts, the theater. I mean, you name it, there you
Mhm.
can find it there.
Right.
You can find a community to fit into, things
Mhm.
to get into. It's also an extremely international city.
Right.
So just walking around and like riding the subway,
Mhm.
you'll hear all kinds of languages
Right.
that you don't necessarily can identify like where those people are
Mhm.
from, which I think is really cool.
Right.
And you can get just about almost any type of food
Mm.
around
Oh,
the world, like
yes.
authentic. Like the food there is just, it's just unreal.
Right.
And, people are about their hustle and bustle out there.
Mhm.
New Yorkers.
And don't get in their way. Like
Yes.
if you get in their way while they're trying to be on their hustle, oh, you'll get cussed out.
Yes, because, here we drive and there's rush hour traffic.
Right,
But
right.
out there's still rush hour traffic in the morning
Mhm.
and going home on the subways. But also like people walk.
Yeah.
And people walk like they're on a mission.
Exactly.
So, when you've got tourists or people that are just dilly-dallying or
Mhm.
decide to like stop in the middle of a major walkway,
Right.
you are going to get cussed out.
Yes. That was one of the things, because we were in New York City, Roland and I were in New York City, I think it was a couple months ago, October-ish. And sure enough, like the people flow and walk like traffic drives here.
Mhm.
And if you can't jump in there, merge, so to speak, if you
Yep.
can't merge with the people, then you're going to get run over. Like you have to absolutely be aggressive, jump out there and just like move with all the people, because if not, you'll get pushed over and you'll end up in the street, like getting run over.
Yeah. And it's just, it's just a really cool city. Like
Mhm.
I honestly, I loved living there.
Mhm.
I had no intentions of actually coming back to San Diego to live.
Right.
Like I said earlier, life just sort of happens and sometimes things take you in a different direction.
Right.
But, my sister and her husband still live there.
Oh, wow.
She's been living there. They live in Brooklyn. She's
Mhm.
been there for like 10 years. And I don't know that, they really like the city. So it'll be interesting to see if they stay there because they're thinking about having a baby.
Oh, that's
So
definitely a little bit difficult to have kids.
Yeah, it definitely opens up a whole new can of worms when living
Right.
in a place like New York when
Mhm.
it comes to kids and school and just a lot of other things you have to worry about
Mhm.
that are very different than from living other places.
Right. So you mentioned kids. So obviously I know the answer to this, but for our listeners, do you have any kids?
No, I don't.
Do you find, and I've noticed this is something about friends of mine that don't have kids, that they really choose to like go against the grain, because obviously like growing up, that's the thing as women, like you get married, you have kids, like that's just the thing that you do. And it's not for everybody, you know, like my daughter, for example, absolutely does not want kids, like doesn't want kids, doesn't, you know, she loves kids, but it's just not her cup of tea.
Yeah.
Like, is that something that, like, is that your mindset, or is it just something that, you know, you just haven't found the right person yet?
Well, it wasn't by choice, put it that way. I've never been the type of woman where I was like dreaming of this fairy tale man and like this fairy tale wedding and fairy tale family. It wasn't something that I really gave a lot of thought about, like some women do. Like, you know, some women say like they're like they knew they just had to be a mom. They just had to be a wife.
Right.
I've never felt like that, like ever in my life. Now, do I want to have those things in my life, or did I want to have those things in my life? Yes. I always thought that I would have kids. Right. So for me, I mean, it's been interesting, and it's been a difficult process because I love kids, and I when I was in my 20s and even in my early 30s, you know, I still felt that I had time. And I can say right now at 41, I'll be 42 this year, that the door has shut for me. And I know a lot of people will say, oh, but you still have time and this and that. And that may be true. Like from a biological standpoint, I'm sure I could probably have a kid if I wanted to. But at this point, like this is for me, my personal choice. I don't want to be 50 with an 8-year-old. Right. You know, when I start thinking about in terms of time, and
you have to think long term.
Exactly. Right. Exactly. And, you know, the reality is that I'm very, very single.
And you enjoy your life. You enjoy your singleness.
Yeah. I mean, it does, you know, it's a process, especially because like I always thought that I was going to have kids, and I definitely thought my younger self thought that I would have been married and had kids by now. Right. So looking at my life, you know, especially when I turned 40, it was just kind of like, wow, like this really isn't what I thought my life was going to look like at 40. Right. But with that, like once I turned 35, I kind of told myself, if it doesn't happen by like 38, in terms of having kids, that it just probably isn't going to happen. Right. Because I'm just not, I know through having lots of friends that have kids and babies. I mean, I love kids, but just the amount of effort and energy and cost, and I mean, it's a tremendous responsibility. And absolutely. And like I said, it comes down to like you don't have the same energy at 50 as you do
at 20
or 30. Absolutely. So that's when I really think about it. It's like if I were to have a kid, you know, now, my kid would be like 8 by I'm 50. Right. It's like nowhere near even being a teenager. So but I've come to terms with that.
Was that something difficult for you to take a look at? Because there's people that will make the decision based off of selfish reasons. And not everybody, you know, there's some people that honestly believe that, yes, they can still do it and they can still be like super active with their kid when they're 50. But there's a lot of people that will be selfish about it and make the decision because they want a kid, you know? Was that something, I guess that decision to say, you know what, it's not for me, or it's not the right decision based off of the child. Like you could, something bad could happen. I mean, anything bad could happen at any time, but you know, we obviously are more susceptible to getting older and things happening when we get older. You know, and you could potentially leave a young child without a parent, you know? Exactly.
And then to add the other element of that is another thing that really played into like my thought process was just being terrified of the thought of being a single mom. Right.
And it is very, very difficult.
I mean, I I have lots of close friends
Mm-hmm.
that, that are my age, our age, that, their kids are like 21. They
Right.
had kids very young, but they were pretty much like single moms.
Right. And we had the energy at the time to be a single mom.
But I mean, the logistics involved, I mean, my heart just goes out to like bow down to single moms, because you guys work so hard. And, especially like from a financial standpoint, like everything is so expensive now. Raising kids is more expensive. It's just, it's tough. And so for me, I always took bringing another like human into this world as it's an extreme responsibility.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that if I were ever to have a child, like we were committed, like, married, that this really like making a good decision in terms of who I would choose to be like the father of my future potential kids. So in that regard, getting to the point where I am now, like in acceptance that I'm not going to have kids, or if I do, it might be through stepkids. If I get involved with somebody who already has children, which is fine, or an auntie or what have you, that's totally fine. But there was a period of time where I was really sad about it. And quite frankly, I was really pissed off. I was pissed off at men for a while, because dating for me has been very challenging in San Diego.
I can understand. I've heard that quite often.
It's been very, very challenging. And it made me angry somewhat towards men, in the sense that I know I'm a good woman and I bring a lot to the table.
Right.
I know how to be in a healthy relationship. And the fact that it was like these guys that I was dating, or people that I was in a relationship with, didn't see that.
Right.
It was just kind of like, and it's not just me. I know a lot of women who are, educated, they're smart, they're
career women.
They have, they're not drama queens. They're, they have interesting hobbies. Like they're just cool ass chicks.
Right.
And they're single.
Yep.
And it's not because they don't want to be in a relationship, or they've got some, issue.
Crazy issue.
Exactly. Yeah. It's just that, a lot, I'm generalizing here, but the status of dating and the quality of men out there, I feel, is a bit lacking. Right. And so for a lot of us, it's just kind of like, dude, I'm not putting up with that shit.
I'd rather be single.
Exactly. I'd rather be single than deal with a lot of the nonsense that some people choose to deal with. And so that's where I was feeling kind of angry. It was just like, wow, like it kind of like hurt my feelings that it's like, or was frustrating that I couldn't find somebody who would see value in me.
Well, I give you a lot of credit, because there are, like you said, there are a lot of people that will just suffer through. Just for the sake of being in a relationship, they'll deal with the nonsense. They'll deal with the cheating. They'll deal with the lying or the abuse or whatever it is that they're dealing with, and not be completely happy. And, my big thing is, I'll be damned if I'm going to be in a relationship and be miserable, because that's your life. That's your time. That's your, I guess, your well-being that you basically are just throwing away. That your self-worth is that low that you're willing to just put up with whatever just to have a companion that isn't even worth anything. Like, that's crazy to me.
No, I totally, it makes me sad.
Right.
Because it's like, especially I see a lot of younger women falling into some really like dangerous patterns with the way they conduct themselves. And it's like, your significant other, especially whether you get married or not, but your partner in life, it affects you mentally, emotionally, your physical health, your financial health, your spiritual health. I mean, it impacts every important element in your life. So that person can either help you grow and make, help you soar in those areas, or they can do the opposite.
Exactly.
And as I've gotten older, I've realized too that it's like, time is the one commodity that you'll
never get back.
You never get back, and you can't create more of it.
Right.
It is what it is, and we never know. None of us really know how long we're going to be here.
Yeah.
And so with that said, it's kind of like, why waste your time 3, 4, 5 years,
Mm-hmm.
even pop out a kid with somebody that you knew in year 1
Mm-hmm.
was an asshole.
Exactly. Yep. Yep.
So, and it's frustrating now because, I mean, I realize a lot of people, I don't look my age. I look younger than
she doesn't.
I am.
Everybody, she looks hella young, like 20s, like super bomb.
So thank you. You're sweet. So I mean, I know from that standpoint, but it's hard to get out there.
Right. Well, absolutely. I think it's number one, it's difficult just because it's just number one, the fear of the unknown. And then I guess we kind of face this thing as women, about being assertive or aggressive. And unfortunately, and again, I'm generalizing as well, and I think we're getting to a point where men are afraid to be assertive and aggressive just because of everything that's going on. But typically as women, if we tell somebody that we start to date, like, where do you see this going? It's not because we're trying to tie you down and put a ring on it. Like, we want to know, do you see this as something serious that could potentially grow? Or are you just dating me because it's something for you to do for the next couple
to pass time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people don't understand that, look, I'm at a certain age. I don't have time to be fucking around. Like,
exactly.
I've got a job that I've got to worry about, or I'm going to school, or I've got kids, or whatever the situation is. And I don't have time to just have, a play date or a play relationship if that's not what you want. We need to figure this out so we can move in the same direction. And if not, cool. Thanks for being honest. But I think that that's lacking. Extremely lacking in a lot of relationships, or in dating situationships, I guess.
Yeah, well, I really think, I mean, for me, it's like, we're old school in the sense that, like, we didn't grow up with the internet.
Right.
And social media. And so this is a whole, I mean, obviously we've adapted to it and we utilize it. So we're in that, like, in between like generation. But for me, like, the whole online dating thing has just been a disaster for me.
Right.
It literally makes me, like, hate men sometimes. It really does. I know that's a strong word, but, like, my patience, I don't have a lot of patience when it comes to certain things and certain behaviors. And so I found that I don't never last very long on the online profiles. Right. I'll have a profile up for like a month or two. I don't think I've lasted more than 3 months.
Wow.
And the reason why I usually end up taking it down.
I'm going to stop you right there. So everybody, that is going to be the end of this episode. But guess what? We've got another episode that we're going to be releasing next week. So if you want to hear the rest of the story and a little bit more chatting with Jess, definitely tune in next week and you will hear all about it and then some. Have a good day, everybody. Talk to you later.